we've probably got everybody we're going to get. Hi, I'm Peter Johnston, and I'm in the middle of trying to create a what I call an open tech community in both Reading and Oxford. And I thought I'd like to share it with you. Bit of fun to start with. If software is eating the world, shouldn't we build some restaurants? That's what we're trying to do with OpenTech. Now, I run the Thames Valley Web Developers Meetup Group, which has 50 people meet in 0 degrees in Bridge Street in Reading to talk about all sorts of exciting things like Angular, JavaScript, and you name it. Anything to do with the web, basically, we cover it. And we want to do a lot more than just a meeting a month. We want to have lots of smaller groups. We want to have all sorts of people working together. But the sort of way meetups and things work, it doesn't happen because you can't get the smaller groups together. You can't run the rooms and get it all to happen. We want to run workshops, hackathons, one-to-one training, collaboration. For example, here's one of our people saying, you know, I want a tooling workshop to go through grunt, gulp, and yeoman. All sorts of unusual things. Now, I'm not going to get 100 people to come and meet in a pub to talk about those, but it would be great fun to have 8 or 10 people that really want to know about it, getting the right people down from London or whatever to do so. But we need a venue. We'd love to have the subgroups I've mentioned. We want to have a Java group, we want to have a Python group. Oh, the Python writing is in white on white and it hasn't come across at all. A Ruby group, Linux group, and all the various, there's so many flavors of JavaScript, it's hard to keep up. And really our ambitions are very wide. You can see, you name it, we want to cover it. Visits, events, workshops, talks, hackathons. Now, I find that an awful lot of the other groups around us have the same sorts of problems. They need training rooms, they need meeting rooms, they need an exhibition area, they need shared equipment. They need, in many cases, the rest of the team. If you're a front-end developer, often you're doing something, you need a back-end developer or a creative to get involved. Or you just need, oh, my code doesn't work, can somebody help me debug it? A second set of eyes works. We need a drop-in for people that are freelancing, so they can help, you know, have somewhere to be between jobs, just generally get involved. We need, in many cases, support services for people so they can do stuff themselves rather than having to go through a company and all that big company bullshit. And last of all, we want a bit of a community. We want to have some fun. So we thought we'd work together. So I've put together a bit of a team. We've got a data science group, we have a startups group, we have a digital creatives group, and we have a freelancers group, and we have the Thames Valley Web Developers group. And we started looking around, right, where can we get all these rooms? And we had a chat with all the business centres and so on. Some of them are very corporate, very useless. Some of them are a bit more helpful. And we want to create a shared space. We've got a training room, a meeting room, and an absolute to die for exhibition and hackathon space. It's as big as the room downstairs that we started in. And it's got beautiful views out over the whole of the Thames Valley. And one of the reasons that business centre spaces are so expensive is they like to give you big fancy desks and put 4 people in a room. We said, hang on, we don't need that, we just need a bench to stick our laptops on, and we need a few machines down in the corner, and we want to talk to each other, not be separated. So we're taking a room that's half the size of this room, but we'll cram a few people in, we'll have a bit of training area in there as well. But there's plenty of breakout area, there's free tea and coffee, etc. So it sounds ideal for anywhere that's trying to run lots of events. We want it all to be free. We want to use open, free software where we can. We want to run an open business model where everybody's kept in the loop. It's not just a for-profit that's making money out of people. And we want to take that further. We actually want to run, go out and get some business that's collaborative so that everybody can work together and make it pay for itself rather than actually charging people for coming along. We want, in many cases, to use event sponsors for the bigger events, and if we pull the money from all of those, we can effectively pay for the centre. We want to put a shared library together with all the software that is so much a month to access, etc., so that everybody can access it on the one. We want to help people create businesses. An awful lot of software people, for example, they'll do some work for a client, and in there is the germ of an idea that with a bit of extra work could be turned into a product to sell to lots of other people. In many cases they need somebody else to help with that. Maybe somebody to do a bit of user, get the user interface right, somebody to do the back-end integration work or whatever, but between them they could create a product that we can then get out and market and do a bit of growth hacking and see if we can get it to make some money. And we want to also help an awful lot of people running small stuff on their own that have quite high costs because they're paying for them individually, whether it's an accountant, whether it's a bit of marketing on your various things that you've got to sign up for to do marketing these days, and even just simple things like a business address and phone answering and so on. So the aim is to try and get everybody to build a community and make it all free and make it all happen, and cut the companies in fact to be out of the loop. Put the software people straight in touch with the users and the buyers and make something really work for everybody. So the rules: no suits, no dinosaurs. We're not trying to recreate Microsoft or Oracle or Symantec or any of these big horrible old companies. We're trying to do the new stuff in terms of apps and so on. And no marketing hype. Today, Thames Valley, we have the space that I've just shown you in Reading Business Centre, which I'm just finalising the sponsorship to cover the rental cost to get in there. I'm still looking for a property in Oxford, and I think we can do the same in Oxford. And tomorrow, wherever, I think the more people that take this idea and run with it, that we can build these centres together, we could create a whole countrywide network, even a worldwide network of people that do it for themselves and don't need all the rubbish of big companies to make a good living out of their skills. That's it, basically.
So are you a formal cooperative? Do you have a legal kind of...
There is a limited company behind it,
okay,
but it is planned to be run as a cooperative.
okay.
But to try and run a cooperative under the way that the Companies House rules are makes it a nightmare. You end up with committees for this and committees for that and so on. So it's much simpler, certainly while it's small, to just make it a limited company, but have an organising team.
So the reason you chose a limited company instead of an LLC?
Again, it's a whole lot cheaper and easier in terms of...
Particularly LLC was supposed to be the great new thing for this kind of community.
Yeah, but it's so wound up into bureaucracy. Whereas if you're a small company, there's no reporting, no nothing. Well, maybe it should be an LLC, but certainly I've gone the limited company route because it's easier at this stage.
So, have you heard of the Hackspace movement?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay. Are you aware of Oxford Hackspace?
I am. Yes,
okay.
and Reading Hackspace. Yeah.
So, does that not suit your model?
It's not quite the same. I mean, the hack spaces tend to be producing, they're playing with hardware and so on. This one is more designed around software. It's designed around creating, well, it started as a web development project and moved on.
If you want something in Oxford, I recommend coming and talking to us because we're Oxhack.
Well, I'd love to work with you very closely.
Yeah.
And Reading Business Centre, looking on the map, is about 500 metres from Reading Hackspace. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I want to work very closely with the Hackspaces, but I think they're slightly different in the flavour. It's more of an office rather than a workshop type environment, if you put it simply.
Okay.
Have you heard of Open Tech Schools?
Open
Tech School.
No.
It's very, very similar idea. There's somebody in London, I can put you in touch with them.
Again,
it's an international development, so it's an interesting thing.
Why Reading and Oxford? Is it just because it's local to yourself at the moment? Or?
One of the reasons actually for starting in Reading was that Reading is actually a bit of a desert for all of the, if you look at meetup groups and so on, there's not an awful lot going on in Reading. And I think the reason for that is that it's all been locked up in the big tech companies. The Microsoft's been keeping all its stuff to itself, or Oracle's been keeping all its stuff to itself, and there's very few open groups. So when I started, I run Thames Valley Web Developers, I also run the data science group in Oxford. And Oxford and Reading couldn't be more different in the way they, meetups and all the rest of it happen. Oxford has lots of them, but they tend to be cliquey. Reading has very few, but they're more open.
And Reading's too close to London.
I think a large part of it, it's a bit of a dormitory for a lot of the London stuff, is the other part of the problem. But I can see an up and coming problem in that as the big tech companies, which are the dinosaurs, are gently dying off. They may not admit it, but they are. Therefore, at the moment there's full employment in Reading for anybody that can wield a pixel or a bit of code. But that's not going to last. I see that changing, and we need to create the next generation while there's still time, in my view. Oxford's got its own different methodologies, in that Oxford's got a lot more public sector stuff. In many cases it has a public sector mindset. And it's again trying to pull it out of the public sector mindset and keep a thriving independent community going that is probably the biggest challenge in Oxford. The other challenge in Oxford, I will say, is that all the business space seems to be full. I can find space in Reading, I can't in Oxford yet. But maybe that's where we can do something with Hackspace, for example.
Yeah, I think there's definite scope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think just going from an Oxford Hackspace point of view, I think it would possibly be wrong to categorise us as purely interested in the hardware side of things or the workshop side of things. There are quite a few of us, speaking to us probably, who are more into code and into things like, exactly, half of my day job is web development. So
Perfect. In
there
that
are
case,
quite a
then
few
we're probably 90% of the way there. Then we can create.
I think it's trying.
But I think the key thing is to create both a sort of a drop-in for people that are semi-freelance. There's an awful lot of people, for example, that are running from one contract to the next, but there's often gaps, and they often find it difficult, for example, to get their next contract while they're busy working, full time on the one they're in. And they could use somewhere to drop in, somewhere to take phone calls, somewhere to handle stuff for them while they're out in contract. And in many cases, they just need somebody to occasionally do the stuff that they can't, or help them whenever they get stuck. All that sort of little help is useful. So there's an awful lot on that side. I think there's also one of the things that I did get involved in was the tech companies that back OpsView, for example, that backs Open Tech. They're absolutely desperate for people. They can't find them, and what they're doing is going to the schools and actually taking school leavers and taking them in as interns, putting them through 3 months on the customer service desk so that they learn what they're doing, then putting them into 3 months in development and working through that sort of thing to try and get them to work at all. Then they go back to university or in many cases they're on sandwich courses. And they're having to do all that sort of work. And the other sponsor we've got is DataSift, and they've got 60 data scientists and they're looking for 30 more, and they just can't get them. But those sorts of companies, I think, would come to a reasonably branded place that has the clever people in it to do the work. They don't know of such a place at the moment, and that's one of the things I'm trying to set up, somewhere where all the companies would know where to go. Because